Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about the Grim Surgeon Rogue from Griffon's Saddlebag Book 2. They so kindly sponsored an entire series covering all 12 of the subclasses from their newest book. So if you want to get access to those, you can pre-order the book today. So check out that link down below. Awesome stuff. If you're new to the channel, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate it based on its roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve the base class abilities. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond Players Bundle giveaway.
Free stuff is wonderful.
That being said, let's jump straight into it.
Okay, we are a Grim Surgeon, and the artwork, as I've mentioned in a lot of these videos, is dead on. Plague Doctor mask in her hand, which gives you an idea of exactly what we're working with here. The first ability we get is Medic at level 3. Gain proficiency in the medicine skill. You better, if you're going to be, the Grim Surgeon. If you don't already have it, your proficient bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses this skill. In addition, your familiarity with blood has become magical, giving you some degree of control over it. As a result, you can use a bonus action to magically stabilize an unconscious creature within 5 feet of you, so essentially spare the dying, without having to use a cantrip spellcaster.
Yep.
You can use this same magic when you apply traditional healing techniques. You can use a bonus action to expend one use of a healer's kit on a creature. When you do, the creature regains 1d4 plus your proficiency bonus in hit points. The creature can't regain hit points in this feature until it finishes a short or long rest. So it's not a ton of healing, but I mean the biggest thing to me is if for some reason somebody is unconscious, you could choose to get them back up this way.
Yes, and we talked about this beforehand, and I had to bring up.
Yeah.
This immediately makes me think of if you're like classic WoW World of Warcraft player. A rogue always had jumper cables. That's exactly what I went to. Is like use jumper cables to bring somebody back.
Yep.
And now it's on cooldown.
Now it's on cooldown.
All right. You also get at level 3 Transfusion. Once on each of your turns, when you deal sneak attack damage to a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you gain temporary hit points equal to your Wisdom modifier. When you reach 13th level, you gain temp HP equal to twice your Wisdom modifier instead. These hit points last until the start of your next turn. So, interesting utility and healing pseudo on that, which we will definitely be getting into in the rating portion of the video.
That's correct. At level 9, we get Field Surgeon. Your medical expertise in blood magic allows you to painlessly mend an ally's wounds using surgical techniques. You decide to use this feature at a start of a short rest, choosing willing creatures within your reach. When you do, roll your sneak attack dice and record the result. At the end of the short rest, that creature regains a number of hit points equal to the total number of your sneak attack dice roll. Nice. Once a creature regains a hit point from this feature, it can't do so to finish a long rest. So you can do, somebody at the start of a rest gets some bonus healing, and then like you're kind of working on them during the course of the short rest, trying to stop the bleeding over here. We're pulling that arrow out of that leg, and we're going to stop the bleeding over there. But once they get that bonus, they can't be patched up like that again until tomorrow. Which you can, if you have a second short rest today, you can patch somebody else up. Kind of thing.
It's the same kind of thing with the first ability as well.
Yeah.
Which per creature, per short or long rest for that one. The next thing we get on here is Toxic Shock at level 13. When you gain temporary hit points from your transfusion feature, the target of the attack is overcome by a wave of sickness. Until the end of its next turn, the target's speed is reduced by 10 feet and has disadvantage on the next attack roll or ability check that it makes before the end of its next turn. So adding some more utility on top of your sneak attack.
And more temporary hit points and more healing and things leading into that very, very far.
Before we get on to the last ability, we give a quick shout out to our second sponsor today, Humblewood Tales by Hit Point Press. Awesome setting, unique expansion onto the Humblewood campaign setting. 5 new adventures, tons of magic items, character pre-made options for players, all kinds of awesome cool stuff outside of the typical fantasy trope. Definitely worth a look. So make sure you check out them in the link down below. Don't want to miss out on this Kickstarter. That being said, last ability on here, Blood Bound. At 17, you command the blood inside certain creatures. Immediately after you deal sneak attack damage to a beast or humanoid, you can force that creature to make a Constitution saving throw. The DC equals 8 plus your proficiency plus your Wisdom modifier. On failed save, that creature is under the effect of the Dominate Beast or Dominate Person spell for 1 minute or until you choose to end the effect. No action required. Once you use the feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, those are all the abilities gained in the subclass. So we'll move on to the rating portion of the video with lots of thoughts and words to be had. First up is the roleplay rating, asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order.
Yes.
Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios. So all of that being said, it is very interesting to gain and double proficiency for medicine.
Yep.
Especially for a rogue, which you typically wouldn't think of being someone to deal with
cleric,
medicine.
druid, paladin, ranger, like even bard would all hit my brain before rogue would.
Yeah, rogue is typically not on there for that kind of check, for sure.
Yep.
And then, of course, the sneak attack healing is very interesting, and it's an indirect buff to the party, especially to the spellcasters. It's going to help preserve spell slots a lot. You're going to be able to let spellcasters and even yourself a little bit of niche indirect help on here.
Yep.
Being able to bring people back down from down unconscious as a bonus action.
Yep.
Is going to be much more impactful than someone else using
Spare the Dying as a cantrip to get somebody stabilized there. Yeah.
That's kind of more on the combat side, but could be some niche use as well. And again, it's kind of that indirect buff kind of thing.
Yeah, if I was spending your spell slots for this, they got available for doing more roleplay stuff.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of a buff to your party healers because they're going to be more efficient. But for you, in general, it's really questionable niche on the actual roleplay side.
Just fight for that word there. Just
yeah. So other than that, there's not really a whole lot of direct roleplay stuff on here. So we went with a 3 on the roleplay.
Yep.
Some interesting options, but just definitely not crazy focused on the roleplay.
No, it's not. On the combat side of things get, well, they stay interesting. You're in a very unique place for a rogue. I mean, we're going to say that probably 17,000 more times in this video, but it's kind of the way it feels. You know, starting off, you have the chance to stabilize somebody in combat, or if you still have the ability to do so, haven't done it once, you can actually use a healer's kit as a bonus action to give somebody a little bit of healing, which the small amount it's going to be, to me, its best use is going to be bringing somebody back up if they go unconscious, especially when it's a bonus action, because you could still attack and then bonus action brings somebody up, which is fantastic. Even though it is once per short or long rest, it is still once per short, so you could get the same person twice with that ability in the same day.
Yeah.
Giving yourself temporary hit points when you hit with your sneak attack damage is great. Yes, they only last the start of your next turn, but it's not giving you a ton anyway, so it's never a bad idea. So, I'm going to give myself 3 temp HP this turn. Cool. Well, I don't have it anymore. Oh, I'm going to hit again on my next turn, and I get 3 again. So it's more of like this little bitty shield it's putting in front of you that, if in case you do take damage, it's going to mitigate some of that for you. Right. So not too crazy.
I mean, assuming you're able to consistently get sneak attack, which is typically not too difficult.
Right. And the fact that, again, it scales and does give twice your modifiers. When you hit 13 on up, it's going to be more of a temp HP bubble, which is good. Field Surgeon is not necessarily a direct combat thing, but again, like Jameson said with the other RP things, because it does allow you to give bonus healing to someone on a short rest, prevent them maybe having to use their own hit die as much, or they will have more health when the next combat rolls back around, so it definitely helps combat if it doesn't happen in combat. So we get to 13, we get to Toxic Shock. Whenever you do gain those temp HP from your previous ability with the transfusion feature, you can mess with somebody else by giving them reduced speed, giving disadvantage on the next attack roll or ability check before the end of its next turn. So you do kind of play with your own ability there and help it out a little bit more, and throw it out some debuff with your healing yourself in the process. And finally, with Bloodbound, you have a chance to do, even though we'll discuss about the whole synergy thing and combat effectiveness of the save. With a beast or a humanoid, essentially have a chance to do a level 5 spell with Dominate Beast or Person, as long as you hit them with your sneak attack and then force the saving throw. It is a Constitution saving throw, which, not great. It's not great, but it's also going on your Wisdom modifier, which, based on this subclass, you might want to consider leaning more that way. So... And it is once, but it does always once per short or long rest. It's not a once per day feature, so you do get it a couple times a day. All that's there, we went with a 3.5 out of a possible 5 on combat. There's a lot of interesting. You get some healing in here, which rogues don't normally have access to, and a little temp HP here. Do get a little debuff in combat, and that chance for that because if you do get that dominate beast or person off,
it's going to be big.
It's a huge flip in combat when you go from you're fighting 4-on-3 to all of a sudden now it's 5-on-2.
Yeah, it's
and that action economy gets swung around and with violence.
But again, it is an interesting save.
Yep.
With con, and it uses wisdom as your spell save.
Yep, not dex.
And it only targets beasts and humanoids. So
yes.
There's 3 little asterisks on that ability.
It's got an asterisk, an at sign, and then the whatever else you want to put for markers on it. It's bad.
So that being said, definitely interesting uses on that.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the thing too is when we were talking about this, it's kind of hard to really gauge some of these things effectively. And moving into, just going to transition straight into synergy on here, because your stat distribution could get a little wonky.
Yeah,
you could get a little mad.
Get a little mad, and it's not, when we say mad, it's not angry mad, but you also could be that too, but it's multiple attribute dependent. Because normally rogues don't struggle with that, because it's like, I need my dex and I want my con for my health, and I don't give a fart about the rest of my stuff.
Right.
It's just RP after that.
So with having dependency on wisdom for some of your abilities on here, it really makes you consider, should I put more into wisdom than I otherwise would have normally?
Yeah.
Which can make some of the saves better, can give you a little bit more temp HP, give you more survivability that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that means you have to give up something else. There's always a give and take when you start getting into
probably your
3, 4
constitution,
stats.
because you're not giving up your dexterity, because it's
right.
Your combat effectiveness is more geared toward that.
So there is a possibility on here that you maybe go with just a dex and wisdom primary and then con third stat.
Yeah.
Because if your dex is first stat, you're hitting your sneak attack more reliably.
Yep.
Which means you're going to be getting the temp HP more reliably. If you have a bigger wisdom score, you're going to get more temp HP.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're hitting sneak attack every turn, or almost every turn, you're getting a nice little shield buffer, and then on top of evasion and uncanny dodge, you're getting some nice survivability to maybe offset some of the lost con for doing so.
Sure.
But again, it's kind of hard to gauge how effective that really is going to be, how reliable. I mean, it might depend on your party composition, how reliably you're going to be able to be getting that sneak attack on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That being said, you do get some pretty nice buffs to the sneak attack and unique uses for the dice with the healing and stuff that you otherwise wouldn't ever have the option to do. And the healing, minor survivability, some battle medic utility on there.
And the biggest thing for me is the bonus action to get somebody alive. Yeah, you can, because normally even for a cleric or somebody or whatever having spare the dying, if they're running out of spell slots,
right,
and that's an action to do that. You can bonus action stabilize somebody, or bonus action give a little bit of a heal to get them up as well.
Right.
Just helping, maybe your only cleric, your only druid in your party that's got healing, and keep somebody alive.
So all that being said, it's definitely very interesting. Maybe a little bit hard to gauge the effectiveness of it outside of thorough play testing. So based on what we're looking at here and the potential for it to be mad with ability scores on here, we went with the 3.5 on synergy. It has some nice utility, some nice options, some decent buffs to sneak attack, but the whole thing with wisdom is hard to gauge how effective it really could be in combat.
Yeah.
Again, if you are able to go dex wisdom, it's very possible that this thing could work if you're able to reliably get sneak attack. But if you miss sneak attack, you're open up to get a walloping, because you're going to start taking rogues. They have uncanny dodge, and that's the thing is with uncanny dodge, if you're giving them disadvantage on the next ability attack or next ability or attack from the toxic shock ability on there, if they're attacking you, I mean, yes, you get disadvantage, so maybe they don't hit you, and if they do hit you, you uncanny dodge, you can kind of cut stuff back, or so you have some survivability. But there's definitely a cost, and that's the thing that kind of held us back just a little bit, is there's definitely some costs on here. If you want to make all of your abilities more effective, you've really got to get into that wisdom.
Yep.
So all that being said, a very interesting, very flavorful, as all of these subclasses are, really.
No question.
Definitely worth a look if you're looking to play something more unique and against type to a typical rogue in general. So yeah, check out Griffon Saddlebag, guys. If you want to get access to this and all the other subclasses and content from Book 2, pre-order it today or become a Patreon member and get access to tons more stuff on top of all that.
Also, check out our other sponsor, Hit Point Press's Humblewood Tales Guide. 5 new campaigns, 3 to 8 level. Great way to get to a second set of campaigns, little side stories that get away from the traditional mold of fantasy. Play with some nifty little animal creatures and some new subclasses that we've also reviewed on our channel as well.
Yeah, so great fun setting. Check out the links down below for all that stuff. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.